Santa Claus brings joy to millions of children every Christmas. But what are his origins, and how did he evolve into the grandfatherly figure we know today? Stay tuned for the answer on today's Holiday Confidential, Santa Claus. To answer this question, we must go back in time to explore the pre-Christian winter solstice festivals. Humans have a long history of celebrating the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. Many Christmas customs and symbols come from these ancient festivities. Saturnalia, for example, was a Roman harvest celebration of the agricultural god Saturn. The streets were decorated with laurel and other greenery, while people partied with excessive eating, drinking, and... In another Roman event, devotees of the sun god Mithras would observe his birthday on December 25th. The Romans also referred to him as Sol Invictus, or the Invincible Sun. Sacrifices may have been made to the god Odin, also known as Wotan, during Yule. It was celebrated by people living in northern Germany, Scandinavia, and the British Isles. Evergreen trees and mistletoe were used during these celebrations, celebrating life in the midst of wintry death because they did not wither during the cold, dark months. According to myth, the one-eyed god rode his white eight-legged stallion through the skies on the night of the winter solstice, rewarding the good and punishing the wicked. His two ravens, named Hugin and Munin, told him who was naughty and who was nice. The focus of these celebrations changed with the conversion of the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great to Christianity. He reigned from 306 to 337 AD. When the empire stopped persecuting believers, solstice customs began to be co-opted by the church. These parties slowly started being used to observe Christ's birth, but their wild nature endured, to the chagrin of church leaders. Nicholas of Myra, now known as St. Nicholas, was a prominent bishop at that time. He was born around 280 AD to wealthy parents in the city of Patara, in present-day Turkey. Famous for his generosity, St. Nicholas is said to have supplied the dowry for 3 daughters of an impoverished nobleman by sneaking into their home at night to leave gold coins. This saved the women from being forced into prostitution, or even slavery. St. Nicholas was also legendary for performing miracles. An evil innkeeper in one story murdered 3 brothers, robbed them, and cut them into pieces to put into a stew for his guests. When presented with this stew, however, St. Nicholas immediately saw the truth and brought the brothers back to life. Although he became known as a saint after his death, he was never officially proclaimed one by the church. At first he was known as a very popular patron saint for almost everyone, such as travelers, sailors, and children. Many cultures started to celebrate St. Nicholas Day on December 6th, the acknowledged day of his death. The Dutch know him as Sinterklaas. Sinterklaas arrives by steamboat from Spain, where he watches Dutch children from afar. Before December 5th, he rides through the night air on a white horse to leave small gifts to children in wooden shoes by the fireplace. His helper named Zwarte Piet, or Black Pete, has been portrayed as a servant and emancipated slave. One of his jobs is to hand out candy to children, but the other is to whip bad kids with a nasty bundle of birch branches or even kidnap them to take back to Spain. Black Pete was originally based upon the Moors, African Muslims who once ruled part of Spain. They were defeated by Christian forces after many years of conflict in 1492 at the fall of Granada. Today he is seen as a puckish helper. Unfortunately, the Dutch portray him by dressing up in blackface. They feel it's okay because they love him. But it's hard to imagine a loving Christian portrayal of former Muslim invaders from a country that once traded in African slaves. Some say the blackened face is the result of soot from chimneys, but that explanation really doesn't explain the big red lips and afro wig. Krampus, a demon enslaved by St. Nicholas, is a different servant who existed centuries before Zwarte Piet. Like Black Peter, he also threatens bad kids with painful birch branches. The demon carries a large basket to either carry children to hell or even to eat them. Krampus celebrations still continue today. Christmas celebrations were curtailed for a time because of the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century. People such as Martin Luther objected to what they saw as Catholic Church corruption, like selling indulgences to reduce punishment in purgatory. They were also against the veneration of saints like St. Nicholas. In 1652, the Puritans in England officially outlawed Christmas for encouraging sinful pagan behavior, although many protested. As in Roman times, an excessive Mardi Gras atmosphere prevailed. Christmas was also banned in certain parts of the American colonies for similar reasons. It slowly regained popularity in England in the 18th century, bringing back the drinking and debauchery of earlier times. Wassailers, really roving bands of inebriated partiers, would barge into homes and demand payment, like merry home invaders. Early 19th century America could be worse. Urban areas were prone to labor protests due to seasonal layoffs. resulting in mass drunken violence. All of these excesses diminished as Christmas was eventually transformed from an adult bacchanal into a family celebration for children. This cultural shift was encouraged by the inventive visionaries of a gentler holiday. The poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas, now known as The Night Before Christmas, was written by Clement Clarke Moore. It was published in the Troy Sentinel newspaper in 1823, becoming an instant hit. The poem added to the Santa Claus legend by putting Santa in a sleigh with reindeer and giving the reindeer names. Thomas Nast, the political cartoonist who created the Democratic donkey and the Republican elephant, based his renditions of Santa Claus on the poem. These illustrations became the prototype for all other depictions. He also made many contributions to Old St. Nick's myth, like the North Pole Toy Workshop, Elf Assistance, and the List of Good and Bad Children. And then there was A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Written in 1843, it became an instantly popular story written by one of the world's most famous authors. The miserly Ebenezer Scrooge only gives his mistreated assistant, Bob Cratchit, half a day off on Christmas. Although this makes him seem like a bad person to modern audiences, it was normal back then for people to work on Christmas. There was no generous spirit of the holiday in his time. Charles Dickens crafted the Christmas he wanted, not the one that existed. In return, his popular tale helped change the public's perception of the holiday. All of these creative works helped to transform Santa Claus. He no longer threatened terrible punishments like Odin, Black Peter, or Krampus. He became more of an avatar for generosity. They also helped change Christmas itself. The custom of giving gifts was not a major feature until sometime into the 19th century. People only gave handmade token gifts, if anything at all. Hard partying was the meaning of the season. But a magical elf that delivers lots of presents was the perfect mascot for businesses with manufactured gifts to sell during the Industrial Revolution, beginning with lavish gift books and Christmas cards. From 1931 to 1964, Coca-Cola hired commercial artist Haddon Sundblom to illustrate Santa Claus with their product in an effort to increase winter sales. Although Coca-Cola used other artists such as Norman Rockwell, Sundblom's portraits solidified the look of Santa as a rotund, elderly grandfather instead of a small, jolly elf. A poem about his most famous associate, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, was created for a Montgomery Ward department store Christmas promotion in 1939. The poem was later made into a song sung by Gene Autry, the singing cowboy. He hated the song at first, but I'm sure he got over it when it became his best-selling record. Humans create myth to explain and cope with existence. Today, people remember Santa Claus out of a desire for a magical avatar of generosity. They want to see the deserving be rewarded. He is the jolly herald of a warm, glowing season of wonder before the cold, dark winter takes hold. The need for Santa, even if you no longer believe in him, will never go away. Thank you, and happy holidays.